Hi, everyone. I'm Nicole, and welcome to our podcast. I am here with my co host, Heather, and we are bringing you a hyper local episode on the emotions and the stresses surrounding moving, whether it's local or not.
That's right. We're super excited to have Chanel Wainscott here with us, a therapist in Walkerton. Chanel is going to share some insight on stress and emotions with moving.
Yeah, so let's jump right in. So we know that moving is an emotional experience. You're sorting through things, a lifetime of things, packing, purging. So even when it's a local move, it can be really difficult, eh, Heather?
It sure can. Is there a psychological explanation why a home becomes so deeply connected to our sense of self?
Thinking about like our nervous system and as humans and our body in general, we crave stability, that equilibrium. That goes the same for our emotions and our mental health. So even if it's like a positive move or anything positive that you're engaged in, there comes with a stress response. So, especially if you're nervous and all the emotions that can come into it, that stress response can be pretty big.
Yeah.
So it's just recognizing that there is going to be a lot of emotions here and that you have permission to feel them all. It's just growing that awareness of like what that looks like for you when things kind of bubble up.
I think that's the key with a lot of things is that we don't give ourselves permission to be human, right? Yeah. So there's also a huge emotional impact when you're moving and it's maybe not your choice. It could be aging, you're downsizing, a job relocation, divorce, and estate sales, eh, Heather? We find they can be particularly unhappy, right?
So what strategies can people cope with the emotional stress of leaving behind I can't say that word.
Familiarity.
Oh, shoot.
Or losing
Sorry, Ash.
things that they're familiar with. The loss of losing the familiarity.
That familiarity, like we're suckers for not being able to tolerate the unknown of everything, right?
Yeah.
Especially when it's something that you're feeling like is not in your control. That can be very hard for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So just taking it a step at a time, taking that break so you can sit back and gather and like figure out and recognize what is in your control, whether that be certain parts of the move, the way you organize and envision how it kind of flows. That can be helpful for gaining a bit of that control and not getting lost in like the emotions, especially those feelings of grief can be a lot.
Yeah. Well, and I find too, even maybe asking for help. We don't always ask for help. We put the burden on ourselves to do it all, and we can't because you'll have burnout.
Exactly. And it's probably harder to ask for help than all the things we're trying to do, which is the part, hopefully, that can kind of like change.
For sure. Okay. So there's unique stresses that come along with selling a house as well. And sometimes, we find there's the anxiety of, I have to clean my house before a showing, or how come I'm not getting the attention? I'm not getting showings. Or it's been 2 weeks, it hasn't sold. We go through that quite a bit too, eh, Heather?
So why do people often equate speed with success?
Again, we're like our worst enemies and we're, expecting that we should be doing more and that things should be immediate. And then there's that what if and that anxiety of thinking in the future of like what hasn't happened yet. So it's hard to be in the present moment to see what's really in front of you.
Yeah, that's for sure. I think because of the fast-paced world that we live in, it's instant gratification, and sometimes waiting is worth it. It's worth the wait, right? Okay, so community transitions. There we often find, especially with children, so you're moving from maybe one town to another town, and I have found that the younger kids seem to adjust pretty good. They seem to be pretty, resilient, but it's maybe the elementary school age kids, high school kids, they have a tougher time adapting, right? They're leaving their friends, sports.
So what advice would you have for families to help with these emotional moves?
Yeah, it's just letting them know that what they're feeling is okay, that it's normal. Like this is all they've known. Like they've built their friends, that sense of security. So just letting them know like what's happening, what's to come, what to expect. Because at this point, they can be thinking about so many what ifs that we think about as an adult, right? So that can kind of give them that sense of control as well by allowing them to pick their paint color or pack and be a part of the process as well and keep up routine as much as you can.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And there's often things that, we can do, right, to introduce activities in our area that the kids can join, that
Clubs
sort of
and
thing.
sports.
Yeah,
and,
take them on a tour of the school, stuff like that. Okay, so delays. We have delays often, and there's so much stress that is surrounded with, maybe the finances haven't come through quickly enough, or there's something that goes wrong. Heather, do you remember that client we had? The previous sale, the funds didn't come through in time, and the seller allowed them to put their stuff in the driveway because the deal didn't close, and it was after hours. Lawyers did everything they could, but you had to wait till the next day, and then it rained, and we were grabbing tarps to put over her stuff. That was a horrible day for her. And pizza. That was a horrible day for her. Yeah.
It was.
Yeah.
So, why do people become emotionally invested, and how can they reframe disappointment in a healthier way?
Sorry, I thought we were.
Yeah, no, it's okay. He was giving me a cue. Sorry.
Could you repeat that again?
Sure. Why do people become emotionally invested, and how can they reframe disappointment in a healthier way?
So like emotional investment in, the perfect kind of like turnout.
The
How to kind of reframe
expectation
from
that it's going to go smoothly, and then it doesn't.
Right. Yeah. That's so hard because in those moments when things don't go as planned, that can bring us into fight or flight. And when we're there, that means the front of our brain, for the most part, that's, in charge of decision making, problem solving, being flexible, all of those pieces, it's offline. So it doesn't make things any better, right?
Well, and I think it goes back to you saying before, the things that are not in your control. It's out of your control, so you have to kind of find the way to adjust because you can't do anything about it.
Exactly. And that takes taking that step to practice some mindfulness techniques to get back to a state where your full brain is online, and at the end of the day it works out, but
you just can't see it at
you
that
can't
time,
see it yet, right?
You can't see ahead that you've got that adrenaline rush going on, and the fear and all my stuff, sitting out, and yeah, for sure. So how does this, let's say for example a seller, I guess a buyer as well, how do they stay organized? Because we've helped ourselves, right, with people that have so much stuff, they don't know what to do with it, a lifetime of stuff in their house. How do they stay organized in sorting, how do you even get started, right?
I always tell them to start, in one room, start in the garage.
Yeah.
Or then start in the living room, maybe leave the kitchen to the last.
Yeah.
But how do you, what kind of advice would you give clients for organizing?
For organizing, like starting small, like how you're kind of going there, because then you can work smarter, not harder. If you've ever heard of SMART goals, so making sure whatever you're planning to do is specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and the timeline makes sense. So a lot of the times when we think we're needing to go above and beyond, like we're being unrealistic, and that's not helping anybody.
No,
So that
no.
mental organization is helpful.
Yeah, and all about time management, I guess, too, making lists, that sort of thing, and maybe sticking to the plan that way would benefit people too,
Yeah.
right?
Even like emotional organization, just having that awareness of your stress response, things that kind of like trigger you to get antsy or frustrated, so that everything can just kind of flow.
That's a good point,
Yeah.
because we do have to take care of ourselves mentally, during this process too. So, going for a walk, just taking a deep breath, or going for a walk, or doing some kind of I don't know, exercise of some sort, just to regroup and feel grounded again. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It gets back to that equilibrium when you're breathing, because we forget, we're holding our breath, we're forgetting to breathe. We need that oxygen.
Oh, I do that
think.
all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that for sure. Yeah. So I can think of another, there was another episode where the people they didn't have their stuff out on time. There was still a lot of stuff left over. The seller couldn't be there. And we had to, I went and brought my truck, backed it into
You
the
helped.
driveway, and
Yeah.
loaded my truck up with all kinds of junk to try and help, because the buyer wasn't happy with how the house was left. So we find sometimes that, that can be a big stress on the buyer and the seller. And, what do you do, if you don't have somebody that to jump in and help you do things like that? I mean, we've done it because we want the outcome to be a happy experience.
Mhm.
So
I stopped talking there because I don't know if my stomach, the growl, it was probably
okay.
but
I'm
it-
lost where you are actually,
I'm
Nicole.
kind of messed up too.
Yeah. Sorry.
It's just something that popped into my
Yeah.
head when we were talking about what would you do if you didn't have a realtor
What number
to
are
do
you
that.
the last we were talking about was the like mental emotional organization.
Mm-hmm. So that's kind of part of that, being organized, because they weren't organized enough, really. Something came up and they had to go, so somebody had to pick up the slack to finish kind of the stuff that was left at the house.
Right. And
Yeah.
that, like, of course, like life happens, things are out of control. But then also, if we are in that fight or flight and we are anxious and not able to use like our full brain and like pivoting, problem solving, hiccups can happen. That's why it's also important to just keep your stress at a manageable state and ask for help when you need it.
Right, yeah, yes. I think we talked about number 8, Heather, where you go for a walk and you do some breathing, even techniques, that sort of thing, to help kind of ground you again. So whether you're moving, I guess there is a big difference as to whether you're moving out of choice or if you're forced to move. That's a tough one. That's a tough pill to swallow if it's a forced move. How do you...
The emotions are really running high then.
How do you handle that?
Sorry, I thought I answered that earlier.
Maybe.
Why don't we, are we finding that the questions are done?
Kind of.
Okay, why don't we ditch the paper and then
Uh-huh.
have a conversation?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you work with
You're-
everything we've done?
Yeah, 100%. You're a big advocate of mental health,
Yep.
sort of thing. Just have a normal conversation, 3 people chatting, and the focus is, we kind of want to stay on topic of moving and the stresses
Yeah.
of moving and stuff.
Okay.
But yeah, just have a conversation. We're 15 minutes into the recording. We could have another 15 minutes of like what we call a riff session. Just she's an expert. Ask
Yeah.
her all the questions that you want. Just have a conversation, and then we'll get another 15 minutes out of there that way.
Okay, can we regroup for a minute?
Yeah.
Good.
No worries. Do your thing.
Help us. I don't know what to say next, eh?
This is so not my comfort zone.
Yeah.
One thing we didn't really talk about was kind of like, so the sciencey, the dialectics, like 2 truths existing at once. Like being excited about to move, but grieving your move, and then
Yeah.
feeling like that can be a good one, like that
Okay.
balancing.
That'd be great.
that
You're very
transition?
good at this. Okay, that's perfect. Do you want to start it?
Mhm.
Or how do we?
I'm recording. I'm gonna cut out
Okay.
the pieces that I
Okay.
don't want. So,
Okay,
Okay.
but yeah, let's get out of the paper and then just have a normal
into the
conversation.
combo.
Okay.
Another thing we have to like be mindful of is when we're in this space where we're not allowing like all the truths to exist, like being sad but being excited about the move, and then half the time you're feeling guilty because, you know, I should be sad about this, but then like this is something exciting. What's wrong with me? And it can be
Yeah.
hard because then you're not honoring either home or space that you're transitioning from when you're in that state.
Yeah, guilt is a huge, huge factor, isn't it, in a lot of things. And I find, like, I'm still in my first home that I ever purchased. And I was going through a series where I thought, okay, I'm going to do some downsizing. Haven't done it in years. I'm going to go through some of our stuff. I was, like, my rec room is a nightmare right now because I have been going through boxes that I haven't looked at in forever. And I can't imagine even, you know, what people go through when they're trying to sort through things to move, or people that move multiple times. It could be job relocations where they're moving, you know, they're moving every couple of years or so. So that would be, I can't even imagine going through that.
Yeah, a lot
Yeah.
to process with
Yeah.
all the changes and changes in identity that might come
Yeah.
with it, and just your attachment to certain aspects in whatever space you're in.
And I suppose too, like, I guess you have to adapt to, you know, the move for a job is, it's a great move because it's a wonderful advancement or a good experience because of the job you're getting, but you are leaving behind a lot of things that money can't buy,
Mhm.
perhaps.
Yeah, it's bittersweet.
It is. Yeah, and I find myself, I'm a bit of an advocate for mental health. I think it's important to have these tips and these things that we don't often think of because we tend to be, I mean, as women, we tend to be Wonder Woman and we have to do it all, you know? So the self-care is so important. What do you think, Heather?
I'm thinking you should just cut me out. I am so sorry. You girls keep going.
Oh, you're doing fine.
No, you girls keep
How many
going.
times have you moved?
Me?
Yeah.
3.
Oh, really? Tell us about it.
Yes, Heather, tell us about it.
How was like self-care when you were moving? Like, what can you remember from that?
The last one was challenging because I had 2 kids. I had a 12-year-old and a 10-year-old. And yeah, that was hard.
It would have been hard too because they were raised in that house
Mhm.
that you were leaving.
They were excited for the country though.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah, there was definitely emotions going on.
Yeah. And going back to like being that Wonder Woman and trying to make sure everything goes the way it needs to go, and then thinking about your kids, am I making the right choice? And the mom guilt, like
Oh, the mom guilt is horrible. Yeah, yeah, for sure it is, and we see it a lot with you know, clients throughout the years that we've, you know, been helping them buy and sell real estate.
Yep, I see it in my practice as well. It's just this, you know, I've always been this capable and this, I had to be everything for everybody. But
Yeah.
now at this time, feeling the pressure, feeling like I don't have control over it, it feels kind of alien to a lot of
Yeah.
people.
Have you moved many times in your lifetime?
I've moved around. I'd say I'm pretty adaptable because of the amount of times I moved as a child.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say the most recent moves as an adult, for sure, has been like a lot of brain power that goes into it, and just navigating adulthood while moving. Like, yeah, it's
Brain
different.
power, that's a great way to put it because it isn't just your physical, it is your brain power. I find personally, if my mind is, you know, if you're feeling down or depressed or overwhelmed or you have so much to do and you don't feel like there's enough time to do it, you feel it physically also. There are physical symptoms, you know, so it's all connected.
Oh yeah, that mind-body connection. And again,
Yeah.
it goes back to self-care. So that's another reason why self-care isn't selfish, thinking about yourself, because that's what's needed for you to like run the marathon of like moving.
Yeah. Well, and we need to focus a little more on that. And we are now, but we didn't always. You know, mental health was not always something that was talked about. You know, you kept it quiet depending on your generation. But I'm now, you know, even with COVID, I mean, mental health issues came long before COVID. That was one thing I thought, okay, it's been here much longer than COVID, right? And COVID isn't the reason. I mean, it's one of the reasons, but it's been here even before that. So it's nice to see that it's addressed more in the modern society than it ever was.
For sure. And the fact that you have this platform to remind your clients that you need to take care of all of your health while you're moving, and all of these pieces are important pieces of the puzzle to consider. So this is an important talk, I feel.
It is, and we're so grateful to have you here with us today to help us, you know, figure out some of these strategies that we should be using that, you know, that we haven't, you know, to just kind of cut yourself some slack, give yourself a break. I've always said to my kids, we do the best we can with what we had at the time. And I have to remind myself of that many times when I'm, you know, overstressing and going, you know, crazy because you let thoughts just kind of run wild. And then you have to pull yourself back in and go, okay, I'm doing the best I can. Doing the best I can with what I have right now. And we've often talked about this too, Heather, with some of the crises that pop up in our job, that, you know, 90% of the things that we worry about never happen. But we spend a ton of time worrying about it. The what ifs.
The what ifs.
The what ifs. Horrible what ifs, aren't they?
Some can be.
Right. And that, well, for one, you know, we can tell someone something till they're blue in the face. I tell people this things every day, but then I still have to like sit back and remind myself, you're doing the best you can.
Yeah.
So it can be helpful, especially when we're moving and our brains are everywhere, to even have like sticky notes, external reminders that you've got this, and reminders to take a break, and a reminder of the next step in your SMART goals and stuff, right? Having something outside of yourself to remind yourself is helpful. Then also thinking about like the spiral of the what ifs, and you said like those horrible thoughts, right? And that when we're being mindful, it's like being present with what's going on around you without that judgment. Because sometimes it's like the judgments we add to it, like if we're thinking like these horrible thoughts, and then that can lead you down to, well, why am I having these horrible thoughts? I can't control these horrible thoughts. But just recognizing that a thought is just a thought. And then that can kind of help clear that way for you to see that like 90% of the times, everything's going to be fine. Just be present. Let's be here. Let's acknowledge the thoughts that come up, because we're human. We all have them. Let's keep going.
Yeah, I like that a thought is just a thought. I've heard that before, just with some of the other self-help podcasts that I listen to. It's rewarding, isn't it, for us, Heather, when, you know, we take that soul picture with the client and they're all happy and excited, and it's such a great feeling, and then they give you the wonderful review, and it's so nice to go visit them, you know, a month later and see how they've made that home their home, you know, putting their own touches on it to really personalize it. And then even, you know, months later you drive by and you see the kids playing in the yard, and it really is rewarding for us. I mean, there's a lot of scary things that happen, and there's a lot of stress for us as realtors as well. We need to take care of ourselves too, so that we can help the clients with their, you know, guiding them through what can be a tough time.
For sure. That's so important, to care for yourself, to show up for the people around you, the people that you care for. And just it's creating that meaning, like going to their house and seeing the rituals they've built around their family and all of that. That is like such a key way to make sense of any sort of transition or change, whether it was by choice or like an unfortunate circumstance. It's like the meaning we add to it. So it's very rich.
Yeah. And I think too, catching yourself, really paying attention to, as you said before, paying attention to your thoughts, because some of them, when you think about it, how true is that thought I'm having? It's not true. It's something that I am making up because that's my ritual of, going through that whole, okay, I have to go through this self-torture so that I can feel better. And it doesn't make you feel better. We go through that ourselves too, don't we? In the office, and with just various scenarios that can happen. So many scenarios that can happen.
Right. And it's that, like, again, that awareness of like, what is the truth? Because it can be true you have these thoughts, and it can be true that you're feeling inadequate or feeling scared. That's all fine. That's dandy, right? It's just having that awareness and then knowing what's in front of you and like what your goals are and like the importance of what you're doing, and like you made this choice, or it just brings you back, for sure.
Talking about it, just as we're doing right now, having someone to talk to about it, just to get it off your chest, and again asking for help, because when you do talk about it, sometimes people don't know what you're going through. So if you talk about it, you never know, like somebody might say, you know what, I have an extra few hours, let me come and help you pack, let me help you do this, because they're maybe coming with an unemotional perspective that can kind of ground you. Yeah,
for sure. And that even sometimes there are parts of your story that you don't recognize yourself until you talk about it, so that gives even more clarity, because it's like, oh, okay, so there's a little more floating around in there that I have out here. Let's make sense of it with the support that I have.
Or it's relatable, because that person, this is what I had that happen, and this is what happened, this is how I handled it. So you can get good advice from others that have maybe previously experienced something that you've not experienced.
For sure.
Cool.
Oh my God, I feel like we were just yammering about anything and everything.
Oh, that's all right.
Was it all right?
Is there anything else that you'd want to ask or get to know?
I think we've covered it all many times around. What do you think?
Like, is there maybe like a main emotion or main like saying that you hear like your clients say that we can kind of like reframe or talk about?
I don't think so.
I'm not dropping my price. Don't include that. Not that I can really think of.
That's fine. I can't think of anything.
No.
Cool. You could ask her where people can find her,
Yes.
and then you could do a little outro saying,
Okay.
This has been Realty Ladies with Chanel, and
Okay.
tune in for the next episode.
Should she just, I think, I'm just so uncomfortable, Yash, I'm sorry. Should she just say it's Nicole Schnurr?
No,
there's
just-
plenty of parts. No, that's okay.
You're involved
You've
in
got
some.
lots of parts in there.
You do. You have parts in there, and will we get to see this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Like whatever you come
We're
up
gonna-
with, we can have a
yeah,
look.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
yeah, no, 100%. Go ahead and ask her where people can find her,
Okay.
and then wrap it up.
Chanel, it has been such a pleasure having you with us today. We're so grateful, aren't we, Heather and I, and the Realty Ladies and Gents. Why don't you tell us where we can find you? Because I have a feeling that it would be helpful to speak to you, if people are having some issues with their emotions and moving.
Right. So thanks for having me. This is such a cool topic, like this transition and everything that goes into it, so I appreciate it. You can find me at the Boomers County in Walkerton. I practice Monday to Friday. I have virtual, some evening availability. If you want to find out more about like how I practice and any other information about me, you can go on my website at www.carecultivator.ca. That's CARECULTIVATOR. Did I spell it right? .ca.
That's
Thanks again.
Perfect. That's
Yeah.
great to know.
this has been an episode with Heather and Chanel. Stay tuned for the next one.
Okay. Well, thank you for joining us today as well. This has been an episode provided by myself, Nicole, my co-host Heather, and our guest Chanel. Stay tuned for future podcasts.
Okay, great.
Yay!
Wow.